This is a podcast inspired by escapism, which is the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. Escape with us. Not just when you want distraction from unpleasant realities, but when you want to join friends who share similar thoughts, similar dreams, who seek and get their escape. The wind is blowing and the sails are set. Welcome to the Whazzapp Odyssey podcast. This is the Great Escape speaking. So now, how about we escape? Ooh, what's up, y'all? Let's rock. Welcome to episode 10, Escapism. So when I was in college during my public speaking course, there of course were many speeches we were assigned to write. This was one of my favorite ones, so I decided to share it here on the podcast. Upon planning it and actually prepping for recording for this episode, I realized I did not have the final copy of this essay anymore. So that kind of just goes to show how important it is to have backups of your own documents, or just anything you can back it up. So I decided to at least share the outline on the podcast today. So the topic, as you already guessed, is escapism. The specific purpose, realizing what escapism is, and if you have experienced it or have at one point, or maybe want to. But honestly, I'm pretty sure everyone has in some sort of way. Introduction. Here's the hook. The mind is a remarkable thing. Preview. A new word I learned recently was escapism. The definition of escapism is the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. Sound familiar, doesn't it? It's the opening to every podcast. I loved just how it sounded as the definition, so I had to include it in the opening when I first started writing it, when I decided these should have openings. So, the first main point that I wrote for this was, I could say in a way that this has affected many people, from books to movies that I know of, and so on, to be honest, etc., etc. Many different examples. An example one could be where someone's house burned down. They could find escapism in maybe writing about it, from just describing the powerful impact it has as fiction or nonfiction. Fiction with it could be something inspired by the fire but leads to a fantasy type story, where the writer has a book that imprisoned a monster, but the fire destroyed the book, hence releasing the monster. But the protagonist becomes a hero for stopping and imprisoning the monster, not really telling anyone, hey, that was kind of my fault. Well, depending on how the fire started, so. Or they could find escapism in just rebuilding in a new and better way than they had before. Especially if they had insurance. Cha-ching! And it's interesting because when I wrote that first part, I actually was inspired by the movie, what's that movie called? It's Goosebumps, the Jack Black version that just came out, came out a few years ago. When I was writing this story, that movie had just come out, so obviously that sounds a bit familiar. Alright, so the second main point. I've experienced it in different ways from time to time, but they are things where I've grown a passion for doing, like creating stories, as opposed to just being immersed in what I'm reading. I cannot tell you how impact these many things hit me. And I said that wrong, but I don't care. I'm keeping this take. From great stories where I've been caught crying teary-eyed after the end of so many movies or so many books or so many video games even, because I really get so immersed in it that my escapism makes me feel like I'm really in there, experiencing these things firsthand. And it's awesome. When the story's good, when it's bad and it's like a horrible cliffhanger that doesn't get continued, you're like, No! That's always gonna haunt you. A little piece of you just dies right there as something horrible happens that's never gonna fix, or you're just not happy with it. So that in a way is escapism as well. It's just nuts. So it's good and bad at the same time, but I've mainly experienced it in great ways. So the sub point to that actually is often you find morals from escapism creations, how others can deal with them or connect more because they dealt with it before, etc. This brings us back to the two forms of escapism, entertainment or engaging in fantasy. All part of the same tree, escapism being the base, entertainment and immersion being branches with tons of smaller ones connected to them. I.e., they're all the same. It's all from the same origin. They're all the same. I'm probably just, honestly, entertainment and immersion, they're like I said, they're all along the same lines. And it was just how I wanted to write it for the story in general, or for the journal, I should say. And from the creating stories to reading them, playing games, creating stuff for the podcast, I'm immersing myself in all these things, and that is what makes creation, from entertainment, getting the joy from other people, being entertained from the things you do, or being entertained by someone else or something else, immersing yourself in either of those things, vice versa. Like I said, that's what makes it all connect. And honestly, there probably could be better ways to name those two sub ones, from entertainment to immersion, but that's all I got. That's all I wrote. I got an A on the paper, so I'm happy. So here is the third main point. I almost said final, but it's not the final one. Anything can become addictive to us. This can easily be a good or bad thing. People could lose sight of reality and be lost in the immersion, usually from some sort of traumatic experience, no doubt, like I said earlier, or just sheer love of fantasy, or etc. Any type of one. I just wanted to pretty much dive more into the fantasy genre here, because that's my favorite genre above all. A lot of variables play out. The subpoint, the key is balance. It's totally fine and healthy going away into escapism every now and again, but you have to remember to come back to reality that we stand in. I'm speaking of the average person, at least. So in reality, anything we do could be escapism, from cooking, playing sports, anything. Conclusion. The summary statement: stressed? Find what makes you happy. Find your escapism in positive things that give you time to breathe and not be overwhelmed. But remember to come back to keep enough balance. We can do and accomplish so many things when the mind is exercised in the right way. It is, after all, a remarkable thing. And that is my paper that I did. So this, as said before, was such a fun essay to write about, because this is why I get so immersed in not only my projects but the works of others. Why I love doing these things so much, and why someday I hope to make it my career. So tell me, where do you find your escapism? Are you still looking for it? Let me know in the comments below. So until the wind hits our sails yet again, later days. Also, P.S. Special shout out to whoever made this upbeat pop vlog music. I don't remember who did it, but it's awesome. If you type upbeat pop vlog music reality, wow. If you type upbeat pop vlog music royalty free in YouTube, I'm sure you'll find this exact same track. So there we go. Later days.